Swept away.
Mm.
That's the phrase that's really sticking in my mind this week. It's not the kind of language you expect from a G7 leader.
Not at all.
Usually it's all challenges and opportunities, you know.
Well,
But French President Emmanuel Macron, well, he isn't really doing diplomatic nuance anymore.
no, he's past that. He's looking at the United States, at China, and he's telling everyone, if we don't move now, Europe stops being a player.
And starts being a menu item.
It is brutal phrasing, isn't it? But, I mean, it captures the mood perfectly.
Yeah.
We're tracking this summit at the Aldenbiezen Castle in Belgium this Thursday, February 12th.
Right, castle.
And usually, you know, when EU leaders meet in a castle, turrets, moats, the whole thing, you expect some nice photo ops, maybe a vague statement.
A nice dinner.
A nice dinner. But this informal retreat, it just feels different. It feels, I don't know, like a crisis intervention.
Exactly. And we've got a massive stack of documents to get through today to understand why. We've got the interview transcripts from Macron's media blitz.
Le Monde, The Economist, the F2.
We have that new joint policy paper from the German and Italian leaders, which is a bit of a plot twist.
A huge one.
And we have a letter from Commission President Ursula von der Leyen that suggests, well, breaking one of the biggest taboos in European politics.
Right. And if you look at these documents together, the diagnosis is unanimous. The European Union is being squeezed to death.
But the cure?
That is where it gets really messy. We basically have three completely distinct, almost contradictory survival strategies on the table.
We've got the spend our way out faction.
The change the rules faction.
And the trade our way out faction.
And the clock is just ticking so loudly.
So let's start with that diagnosis,
Yeah.
specifically this Greenland moment idea. Macron dropped this phrase, and I think a lot of people just scroll past it. It sounds obscure.
It really does.
But it's actually the key to understanding the panic.
Yeah.
And he's not talking about climate change here.
No, not at all. He's talking about sovereignty, or I guess the loss of it. He's referencing these geopolitical moves we've seen around Greenland.
The Danish autonomous territory.
Exactly. You'll remember the United States made noises about, buying it, or at least treating it as a strategic asset, like an aircraft carrier made of ice.
Not as a partner.
Not as a partner. So when Macron says Europe is facing a Greenland moment, he means Europe risks becoming a territory that things happen to.
Instead of a power that makes things happen.
It's the difference between being a diner at the table and being the lunch.
Wow.
And this anxiety, you can see in the source material, it's directly tied to the new administration in Washington. Macron describes this cycle in his interviews.
What's the cycle?
The U.S. threatens tariffs. Europe panics. The U.S. maybe backs down a little bit. Europe sighs in relief.
And goes back to sleep.
And goes back to sleep.
Yeah.
And Macron is basically screaming, do not go back to sleep.
He was so specific. He said, don't believe for a second that the pressure is over. The argument is that America First isn't a glitch. It's the operating system now.
And you have to look at the context. You've got Washington playing hardball, and then you have Beijing pouring state subsidies into electric vehicles, solar panels, you name it.
So the U.S. is closing up, China's expanding aggressively.
Europe's traditional model, which was like, let's have open markets and take 3 years to make a decision, it just collapses in that environment.
Which leads us to the first strategy on the table at Aldenbiezen, the money.
The big one.
If the problem is that Europe is too small and fragmented to compete, then the solution is to create a superpower-sized budget.
And the number Macron is throwing around is just, it's eye-watering. He's calling for 1.2 trillion euros.
1.2 trillion.
In investment, annually.
Annually. I'm just trying to visualize that.
Well, just to put that in perspective for you, the entire GDP of Spain is roughly 1.5 trillion. So he wants to mobilize nearly a Spain's worth of capital every single year and pour it into it. Green tech, defense, and digital infrastructure. He's looking at U.S. spending on AI and defense, and he's saying, we are bringing a water pistol to a bazooka fight.
But here's the friction point, and it's a huge one. This isn't private money. This is public money. Where does 1.2 trillion euros come from?
Well, that brings us to the return of the wise men. You have Mario Draghi, the former ECB president.
The whatever it takes guy.
That's him. And Enrico Letta, former Italian PM. They've been brought in by Council President Antonio Costa.
It's like getting the band back together for one last tour.
It really is. Costa basically brought them out of retirement to tell the other leaders you have no choice but to issue common debt.
Eurobonds. The eternal zombie debate of European politics.
It feels like we've been talking about this forever, right? But the context has changed. Draghi's report, which is kind of the Bible for this summit, points out something crucial. Europe actually has the money.
What do you mean?
Europeans are great savers. We save much more than Americans do. But the tragedy that Draghi points out is that those savings, hundreds of billions, they flow out of Europe and into the U.S. stock market.
So we're funding our own competitors in Silicon Valley.
We are literally funding the very companies that Macron says are about to sweep us away.
That is wild.
So Draghi and Macron's argument is, create a safe, massive European asset, a Eurobond, and you keep that capital at home. You use it to build factories in France, Germany, Poland.
But, and it's a huge but, this requires Germany and the Netherlands to co-sign the loan.
And traditionally, the answer from Berlin to joint borrowing is a polite or sometimes not so polite. Exactly. It's seen as a moral hazard. Why should German taxpayers be on the hook if another country overspends?
But Macron's trying to reframe it.
He is. He's saying this isn't about paying off old debts. It's about building a shield that protects all of us. Because if the European economy collapses, Germany suffers just as much as Greece.
I did notice the numbers are escalating. Draghi originally proposed, what, 800 billion?
Back in 2024, yeah. Now Macron is pushing 1.2 trillion. I think they're trying to shock the system into action. They're betting that the fear of Trump and China is finally greater than the fear of debt.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate. Let's say the fiscal conservatives hold the line. They say, no new debt. What's plan B?
Plan B. Well, plan B is arguably even more radical. This is the strategy from Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. If we can't get everyone to agree on the money...
We stop waiting for everyone to agree.
Exactly. This is the two-speed Europe idea.
Right. So on Monday, von der Leyen sent a letter to the capitals that really rattled some cages. She explicitly mentioned using enhanced cooperation.
Yeah, that's the term.
Okay, let's unpack that. It sounds like bureaucratic jargon, like a workshop at 4 p.m. on a Friday. But legally, it's a loaded gun, isn't it?
It's the nuclear option of EU treaties. It allows a group of countries, a minimum of 9, to move forward with a new law or initiative, even if the others say no.
So practically, let's say France, Germany, and 7 others want to subsidize a massive defense project, and Hungary says no.
They just go ahead. They leave the others on the platform. Von der Leyen's quote in the letter is very telling. She says, "We must not be afraid to use the possibilities provided for in the treaties."
She's saying the speed of the fleet can no longer be determined by the slowest ship.
That's it. It makes sense from an efficiency standpoint. If you're competing with China, you can't have 27 vetoes. You need to move.
But doesn't that break the fundamental promise of the EU? An ever closer union?
That's the huge risk. If you normalize this, you create a Tier 1 Europe and a Tier 2 Europe. The countries in the slow lane just become satellites of the core. It solves the speed problem, but it creates a massive political legitimacy problem.
It sounds like a breakup in slow motion. It's not you, it's me. I just need to move faster.
And imagine the resentment. If the core gets all the benefits and leaves the periphery behind, you're just fueling Euroscepticism in those outer countries.
You're writing their campaign slogans for them.
Pretty much.
So we have Macron saying joint debt, von der Leyen saying coalitions of the willing, but then we have the third player. And this is a new power couple I don't think many people saw coming.
No, definitely not.
The German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, and the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni.
The Merz-Meloni axis. It's fascinating because politically, they're from different families. Merz is traditional center-right, Meloni is right-wing nationalist, but they have found common ground on economics.
And they walked into this castle with a joint policy document that basically says, stop looking at the state to save us. Look at the market.
It's a classic supply-side approach. While Macron is looking for a credit card, they're looking for a pair of scissors.
To cut red tape.
Exactly. While Macron is talking about spending trillions, they're talking about simplification. They think European companies are failing because they're strangled by regulation and high energy costs.
Simplification sounds nice, but what does it actually mean?
It means rolling back some environmental reporting standards, faster permits for factories, making it easier to hire and fire. They believe if you just get government out of the way, German engineering can still beat the world.
And they're looking outward, too. The document specifically names India and Australia. That caught my eye. Why them?
That's key. They're realists. They know the U.S. is turning protectionist and relying on China is dangerous, so they want to pivot aggressively to the global south and the Indo-Pacific. They want free trade deals finalized now.
So instead of decoupling, it's diversifying.
Yes. Sell German cars to the booming middle class in India, get resources from Australia. Their logic is, if the American market is closing, we need to open 3 new doors elsewhere.
This stands in pretty sharp contrast to the French position, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Macron's approach feels very fortress Europe.
It does. Build our own capacity, protect our own industries. Merce and Maloney are saying, no, open the windows, let's trade.
There's a deep philosophical clash here.
A huge one. Macron wants an industrial policy state planning. He wants to pick winners. Merce and Maloney are skeptical. They think bureaucrats are bad at picking winners and the market should decide.
But is that true anymore? I mean, you look at solar panels, Europe had the best tech, the market was working, then China came in with massive state subsidies.
And wiped the European industry off the map.
Exactly. Can cutting red tape really compete with $1 trillion of Chinese state funding?
That's the exact question Macron would ask. He would say MERS is bringing a knife to a gunfight. But MERS would counter that if Europe tries to out-subsidize China, we'll just go bankrupt. We have to be smarter, not richer.
Okay, so let's recap the board, because it's a lot to take in. You've got 3 flavors at this castle.
3 very different flavors.
Flavor 1, the Federalists. Borrow huge money together, become a superstate to match the U.S.
The pragmatists. If we can't unite, break into smaller, faster teams. And flavor 3, the free marketeers. Deregulate, cut tape, trade with India, and let business save us.
And the difficulty is that you can't really do all 3 at once. They contradict each other.
So they're sitting in this castle, looking at these 3 contradictory maps. When do they have to decide?
Well, this retreat is just brainstorming. No treaty was signed. But the real deadline is the formal European Council meeting in March. That's the showdown.
March. So about a month to reconcile 3 completely different worldviews.
And they're doing it under extreme pressure. We mentioned the U.S. and China, but the European economy is stagnating. Germany's been sputtering. If they come out of March with just a strongly worded statement, the markets are going to punish them.
It really feels like the era of the status quo is dead. That Greenland moment implies that doing nothing is the most dangerous option of all.
That's the one thing they all agree on. The luxury of time is gone. For decades, Europe worked by moving at the speed of the slowest member. But in 2026, with the geopolitical wolves at the door.
That's a suicide pact.
It is.
So let's zoom out for you listening. Why does this matter if you're not an EU policy wonk? Maybe you're in Ohio or Osaka.
Because the EU is still the largest single market in the world. Which path they choose changes the global economy. If they go with Macron, you see a massive boom in government contracts for green tech and defense.
A more state-driven Europe.
If they go with Merce Maloney, you see a rush of trade deals with India and South America. Supply chains shift. And if they go with von der Leyen's 2-speed model, we might see the political fragmentation of the West.
And it's a test case, isn't it? Can 27 different countries actually act as one in a crisis? Or does the nation-state ultimately win out?
Exactly. And let's not forget the defense angle. A huge part of Macron's $1.2 trillion is defense. If Europe doesn't get its act together and the U.S. pulls back, we aren't just talking about trade tariffs, we're talking about the safety of the continent.
It brings us right back to that phrase, swept away. It sounds so dramatic, but when you look at the tech gap, the defense gap, the energy gap, it feels less like hyperbole.
And more like a weather forecast.
Yeah.
It does. And that's why even the fiscal conservatives like Merz are proposing radical changes. Everyone smells the smoke. They just disagree on which fire extinguisher to use.
Before we wrap, I want to circle back to that 2-speed idea because I think it has the biggest cultural impact. We're used to thinking of Europe as a solid bloc.
Right.
If they pull the trigger on enhanced cooperation for the big stuff, defense, finance, technology, are we watching the end of the European Union as a union? Does it just become a glorified trade zone for the East and a superstate for the West?
It's a profound question. You might save the economic competitiveness of the core, Germany, France, but you might lose the soul of the entire project.
The soul of the project.
The EU was built on the idea that enemies became partners and moved forward together. If you are a citizen in a country that gets left in the slow lane, say Bulgaria or Malta, do you still feel European, or do you start looking elsewhere for partners?
Abandonment is a strong word, but that might be how it feels. If the bus leaves the station and you aren't on it, doesn't matter how efficient the bus is.
You're still walking. And historically, whenever Europe is fragmented, bad things happen. So von der Leyen is playing with fire. She thinks she can control it. but she might just burn down the house.
It's a fascinating high-stakes game of poker happening in a Belgian castle. We will be watching March very closely to see who blinks first.
We certainly will. And keep an eye on those bond markets. They usually tell the truth before the politicians do.
Always the truth tellers. Thanks for diving in with us today.
A pleasure.
And to you listening, thanks for giving us your time. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.